AI may help the whole process of retail media, at least the measurement side of it, and then the implementation side of it. My ability as a marketer to create programs, to create messaging that will impact specific retail customers differently. If I'm spending money on Walmart or I'm spending money on Giant Eagle or ShopRite, I know that those audiences are different. So I can create messaging as a CPG marketer that's going to appeal best to those audiences across my spectrum of companies that I'm dealing with on the retail side. And AI will help, definitely help that, not only on the content generation side, but also on the feedback side.
So, Ron, I was expecting more out of retail media. I mean, I was expecting, when they announced it, when the companies, grocers started to say, hey, we're getting into this, and they started to embrace it a few years ago, I thought at this time there would be screens everywhere in stores and dancing girls and magicians, and it was just going to hit you in this incredible stimuli. But we're not really there yet. And let me just, before I get your valuable opinion here, let me just go to a story. So at Grocery Next, we talked a lot about retail media. And that was Grocery Next, of course, was last week, a supermarket news event that did very well. A lot of engagement, a lot of networking. So there was a panel that had Hasham Yunus, who's the director of RMN, which Retail Media Network, product innovation at Albertsons, and Jonathan Mancuso, who's the director of retail media at Giant Eagle. And they both said that retailers are still in a testing and learning phase. So my first question to you is, why is it taking so long?
Good question. And I'm sure the folks from Albertsons and Giant Eagle have an idea of why it's taking so long. It is a hardy investment. You putting screens in stores, putting other beacons and other technology in stores doesn't just come waltzing in the front door at pennies. It's a hardy investment. The other thing is that you have to get the customer engaged. Right. The only way that there's ROI to prove to the brand that's paying for the thing is if the customer does actually convert and buy whatever that brand wants them to buy. So if you don't do that, it's going to wither and fade away pretty quickly. So people have been pretty careful, both on the retailer side and on the brand side, to make sure their investments are more than likely to pay off. And there are a bunch of risks that retailers specifically are facing, and brands may or may not be as supportive as they could be. There's this old adage in retail that the brands are making 10% or even 15% on their dollar, and the retailers are making 2%, but it all evens out because of the volume at retail. Well, the truth is that there's still a pretty big disparity between those two margins. And this is on behalf of the consumer. The retailer is always going to try to navigate a way to get more money to the store and to both engage the shopper and then to maybe pad their own bottom line a little bit.
So let's talk about the CPGs and grocers and how they can or should really work together on this. I think I view retail media as a great way for CPGs to get a way in to the shopper on a daily basis. Via, even if it's through a grocer's app that suggests certain products that they should buy, and it's obviously is suggesting their products that they should buy. If they're looking, looks like you're going to build or make a lasagna, so here's some things that you can buy, and here's where they are located in the store. Why isn't I guess why is there not more of a CPG buy-in by this point? You would think that that would be a really valuable merchandising marketing tool.
Yeah, and there's an amazing guide to all of it, right? In Amazon, which is really the progenitor of most of the retail money that's out there. They have an amazing business model to collect money from their suppliers, and so I agree that people haven't been able to emulate that, with a couple of exceptions. I mean, Walmart certainly has put the not, I want to say the hurt, but they've collected money from suppliers to help drive Walmart.com, but not to the same effects or impact that Amazon has. So everybody's chasing that, and that is one of the biggest risks I think facing even the largest of chains is that they don't see Amazon in that realm, the sort of the buy side realm of being competitive. Certainly on the sell side they do, but they are just suctioning up a lot of the monies that are being used because they've got the numbers, right? They can go back to, and we're going to flash this recommendation for you, and we'll have the conversion numbers tomorrow, right? So if and to whatever means, the vendors that are selling to retailers, and even to, to your point about the CPGs and the collaboration, it's just not quite there yet, or at least to that objective level.
So let's look at Walmart because, in the world of retail, everyone looks at Walmart, especially with technology. And, Walmart purchased TV manufacturer Vizio a couple years ago. And I believe one of the main reasons was for retail media. And even Walmart is kind of lagging behind. I mean, again, I thought when that deal took place, wow, I'm going to walk into a Walmart and there's going to be Vizio TVs all over the place and they're going to be cranking out, ads, what have you. What do you say about Walmart and where it's going with retail media?
So, um, a couple things there. Walmart still has to, quote unquote, buy those TVs for the stores, right? So, the infrastructure costs are still something, and they've seen a couple of other priorities that have come by that may be more engaging to the customer than those kinds of big displays, and have put the money behind those efforts. Everything from shelf edge technology to smaller displays. So, and they're seeing some pretty good payback on that. The there is a fragmentation of the ecosystem, right? Because it's still fairly new. People are still on the retail side, on the brand side, still testing out, and the technology companies themselves have gotten to bed and formed some unusual partnerships to try to take advantage of that money that's hopefully going to be available from the on the spend side, on the brand side. So that hasn't helped. And it hasn't helped a company like Walmart, particularly because they're looking at dozens of opportunities during the course of a week, and only some of them even pass muster for a test. It'll be interesting to see. Last year at Grocery Shop, there was a lot, or the two terms that were being bandied about by just about everyone were AI and retail media. It'll be interesting to see in a week and a half what the predominant trends are on the floor because of some of the issues you're raising. Nobody's going to say that it's objectively a failure at this point because it just hasn't run its course. But there are some holes. And one other thing I would really sort of insist on is that the collaboration level that you talked about between trading partners just hasn't been there. There's distrust for a bunch of different reasons. Everything from the slotting fee examples that we had a decade ago or more, and more recently, sort of because of the tariffs and other issues and inflation, the sort of the thrust that the retailer said to the suppliers, you got to give us a break. You have to, make us help us help the consumer keep prices down. And so that has resulted in a less than joyous relationship between between suppliers and retailers over the past couple of months and year, and that hasn't helped. And the last thing I would say is there has been a lot of talk from vendors about ROI. And whether it's a vendor that's selling displays or an actual broker who's trying to coordinate several CPG companies into a buy system for a specific retailer, you'd think that, again, with the example of Amazon, you'd think that they would be down the road far enough to say, here's our ROI. We know that we're going to be in front of 1,000 people. Of that 1,000 people we're in front of with this messaging, we're going to get 20 converts. And of those 20 converts, you'll have 18 who are buyers of the product in the past, and you get 2 new buyers. And that information, again, to your basic thesis, should be available. I know when I'm buying online that the retailer knows who I am because he's got my credit card. But translating that over to the stores is a little more precarious, right? Because the messaging gets a little befuddled, and you don't have that direct connection for the conversion measurement.
So, do you think that we should lower our bar when it comes to retail media? Again, when everyone was first talking about it, it was all bells and whistles and sparklers and fireworks. And maybe, as the process has played out, I mean, you mentioned a lot of good points, between the partnership between the grocer and the CPG, and that's really critical for
Yeah.
retail media. Do you think it's going to be a world where we have to lower our expectations on what's going to be out there as far as tools?
I do have an answer for you, but I'm interested to hear from the conference last week if the guy from the person from Albertsons and the person from Giant Eagle had anything to say about that. Were they asking their brand partners to step up to the plate more, or were they saying we have work to do in order for you to get the most out of the money you're going to spend with us?
Yeah, it was kind of twofold. It was both sides. They did stress though that there has to be a working relationship with CPGs with retail media.
Yeah. So, to your question, I would say there are. I don't like the idea of lowering the bar. I think there still is good potential for this. Um, Sort of as an aside, every time we in the industry, in the supermarket business, have a new concept like this, there are fits and starts. I can recall within the past 2 or 3 years with AI, and that continues to this day. There's not all that much companies can say, yeah, we're doing this, and that's resulting in this increase in bottom line, or this decrease in labor costs, or whatever. Those business use cases are still pretty far apart, as much as the folks at the grocery shop floor are going to tell us they are. And by the way, AI may help the whole process of retail media, at least the measurement side of it, and then the implementation side of it. My ability as a marketer to uh, create programs, to create messaging that will impact specific retail customers differently. If I'm spending money on Walmart, or I'm spending money on Giant Eagle, or ShopRite, I know that those audiences are different. So I can create messaging as a CPG marketer that's going to appeal best to those audiences across my spectrum of companies that I'm dealing with on the retail side. And AI will definitely help that, not only on the content generation side, but also on the feedback side. I do like the idea of giving a lot of leeway to new ideas. That, I think, has been a hallmark of retail generally, and specifically with grocery retailing. The old adage of throwing up the spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. I'm pretty sure it must have started with a retailer somewhere, because
Sure.
we the industry has tried just so many different ideas, and a lot of them have been incredibly successful. I may have shared with you, my father was one of the first retailers in America to have an in-store photo processing facility, and this is back in the '70s, and that was a great opportunity for a long time, until digital cameras came around. And there's going to be something that'll either boost or negate what's going on with retail media today. And I'm suggesting to you that that'll be the consumer acceptance, in store, online, the ability to understand the consumer better, and then to increase that conversion rate, because that's exactly what the brands are looking for. And that's the number. I was on the phone with somebody earlier today, with one of the big brands, and a medium-sized brand, I should say. But all they talk about is conversion, especially if they're in a highly competitive category. Dog food, right? There's 4 or 5 competitors there, and they're just clamoring for shelf space. Obviously, soda or pop, right? The other ones, not so much on the perimeter, but certainly on the center store. And anything they can do to create some kind of point of differentiation with those other competitors is going to help them. But you have to have that conversion rate and you have to be able to show it. And we haven't talked about it much, but sort of that omni-channel thing, right? So if I know I'm buying some of my stuff online and I'm some buying the rest of it in store, when I come to pick up the bulk order, my ability to to add a little extra from an impulse buy, right, is really critical for both the retailer and that brand, because those impulse buys are usually the high margin things for both the retailer and the brand. So we can't start the Beagle song, I think, yet for retail media. I think it's got some legs.
Yeah,
It may not be as pervasive as quickly as we had thought, or at least as quickly as some of the people that were talking about it 2 or 3 years ago, I thought. I think a good lesson is when any of these big trends start, you always see 2 or 3 consultants that really harp on them. You see a couple of trade associations that either pop up out of nowhere and are and you haven't there's no retail media trade association yet. There's no retail media
true.
magazine. So,
Yeah.
until that happens, that's when you know it's got legs, right? So, maybe that's an opportunity for us, Bill.
I was gonna say, are you suggesting that I can really become, my own owner of my own publishing firm and just covering retail media?
If
That's
it's
what
got
you're doing?
legs, yeah, yeah.
I
I don't
tell
know if
you,
Paulie will like this talking about that, but
it's funny because a couple years ago, actually more than a couple years ago, I was looking into starting up a pickleball publication because it was getting really, really hot. And it's still really hot. It's showing no signs of slowing down. But you know what? There's this thing called money, and you have to have money if you're starting up these publications, Ron. You can't
yeah.
just start them up and wish on a prayer.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That is the challenge, and you can have the best business model and covering the most dynamic space in the market, and still, if you don't have the backing, it's hard to get noticed. There's just too much noise out there.
All right. Well, we have some time, Ron, to generate the revenue here for it. You said it's
That's
not
right.
quite
That's
ready,
right.
for big time yet, but we got some time. So, maybe this is something that
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
do together.
Sounds good.
So yeah, so really, I'm really hoping to see at the very least, Ron, a magician in some of these stores. Because let's face it, who doesn't love a magician?
That's true, and even if it's virtual, right? You don't have to have somebody right there. You can have a nice display and
There you
uh,
go.
the magic tricks for well, there's a cereal named Tricks, isn't there? So
Yes, there
the
is.
folks at General Mills should get on
General
that.
Mills. Boy, we're just thinking. I mean, here we go. CPG. Another reason why CPGs should work with grocers, in retail media, because you get these magicians also on the whole circuit, and you got all these kids watching, and kids, they're big influencers in those
Oh,
in
yeah,
those households.
I've had my kids are older. My kid is older, so but I've seen tantrums both by her and others in stores, and sometimes the easiest thing for the parent is just to give them what they want. So.
That's right. All right. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch this continuing to unfold. As you mentioned, grocery shop is in a week and a half. I'm sure we will see our fill of what's going on at grocery shop. Ron, I hope you and I can actually do a podcast on the show floor at grocery shop, and just talk about what we're seeing. And I think that would be of great value. So,
I look forward to seeing you there.
all right. For Ron Margulis, I'm Bill Wilson. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.